Greetings friends. Thanks for stopping by for a visit. If you enjoy the video, please subscribe.
I know this sounds dumb, and I've got 1,000 more stories that are much easier to believe than this, but this one has stuck with me the most. Okay, so this happened when I was 17. I live on the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. I said in a post before I lived in Indiana, but I don't. It was just to keep some level of anonymity from my friends who use Reddit. My friend and I were at a bonfire party and we were going home. I promise I wasn't drinking, but he was. I was his designated driver. He sat in the back seat and I was driving. Now the entirety of where we live is a super small and spread out town/county. To go back home from where we were, there are a lot of secluded roads we had to take. It isn't safe to drive at night because of the drug addicts and the animals that like to run across the road at night. And right before we get back home, there's a hill we have to go up. It's notorious for people abandoning their unwanted pets and not being super safe at night. I got to the very top of the hill, and I saw something moving out the window to my right. And I looked over and saw what looked very similar to a garden gnome. He had a long beard, standard gnome clothing, and a very blank look on his face. I was literally scared shitless, and I stopped the car. He just stared at me the whole time and I thought I was so tired I was seeing things. I tried waking my friend up in the back seat to stay awake with me, but he was so tired and drunk it wouldn't have helped much. The gnome just stared at me the whole time. I started driving, and it scared the shit out of me when he started running beside the car at the exact same pace. Whenever I would speed up, he would match the pace. Whenever I slowed down, he would match the pace. I know you're asking why the hell would you slow down, and I don't know either. My friend woke up to throw up, I guess, and he was gonna roll down the window to get some fresh air, and he saw the gnome right beside the car. He freaked out, and so did I. I hit the gas and got down the hill as fast as I could, and the gnome went the same speed as us. Once we got into the bottom of the hill, it jumped into the bushes. I've been down that hill 1,000 times before and after that experience, and I've never had something like that happen to me again. Don't know if it was an actual gnome or not, but that's what me and my friend call it. My grandma has lived here her whole life and knows weird things happen here, but she swears up and down she has never seen a gnome before. Most people haven't.
Holy crap, I saw something similar about 10 years ago in Florida. I just assumed I was nuts and mostly forgot about it until I saw this post. I was working as a security guard at the time and it was an overnight shift. I was sitting in the complex's roadside guardhouse with the sliding glass door open and I was on the verge of falling asleep. Bad, I know. I was in that weird limbo of not quite being asleep but not quite awake either. I saw some movement by a light post about 40 feet away and thought it was some animal. It wasn't uncommon to see a raccoon or armadillo on that shift. As I looked closer, I saw what looked like a little person with its back to me rummaging through something. I was still trying to process what I was seeing when it snapped its head around and looked dead at me. A garden gnome. Red hat, beard, and all. I didn't even have time to process what I was looking at before the damned munchkin charged straight at me. It was fast. To answer another poster's question, it did a weird little waddle run that would have been pretty hilarious if it wasn't just so damn fast. Anyway, it closed the distance in about 2 seconds and I jumped up from my chair, but there was nothing there. Still freaking out, I started frantically looking around, but I couldn't see anything moving, much less an angry fairy tale critter. I didn't have a problem staying awake for the rest of my shift. I won't blame anyone for passing it off as a sleep-induced hallucination. I did until right now. I will say that I felt conscious the entire time and never felt myself complete the transition to sleep. I don't know if I feel validated that someone else experienced it, or at least shared my hallucination, or terrified that there's a speedy, angry gnome out there somewhere.
The best gnomes encounter I can think of is the Woollerton Park gnome incident. A group of young kids in the UK snuck into a city park after dark or while the sun was setting. While walking in the park, they heard what sounded like tires and people running through leaves. To their shock and amazement, it was gnomes. Little 1-foot-tall garden gnomes, and there was a lot of them. Some were even driving these really small, short weird cars that had square wheels. The kids were incredibly frightened even though the gnomes seemed harmless and like they were having fun messing with the kids. One kid tried to run away from the group when suddenly a gnome jumped down from a tree, landed on the kid's back. The kid then fell face first into mud, which apparently the gnomes found absolutely hilarious. It gets a little stranger. Once the kids get out of the park, they meet up with a teacher the next day at their school. They were so frightened and freaked out they just had to tell an adult. The thing is, each kid gave a very different description of the gnomes. Some said they had beards, some didn't, some said they were driving little car-like things, others insisted they were not, some said they were hats, some said the skin color was this or that. The kids could not agree on anything when it came to the appearance of the gnomes. But I found this very interesting. Because well, this is a very common but often overlooked detail when it comes to the paranormal. A large group of people will see a UFO. It's not that uncommon for multiple people in the group to give drastically or small different details others did not see or agree upon. Some in the group saw a metal ball with 3 white lights while others insist that it was a triangle with 2 red lights. This is also common with Bigfoot. If a group of people see a Bigfoot, it's not uncommon for people to describe different heights, weights, fur color, times etc. etc. The YouTuber Shrouded Hands does an amazing video on the Woolton gnome incident, by the way. I have heard tons of stories involving gnomes and people seeing them. It depends on the culture. In South America, their culture teaches that gnomes are malevolent in nature and are dangerous. In North America, they are considered shy and friendly beings.
I will be the first to admit I thought these types of cryptids were a joke and not real, and I've never been able to take them seriously. I am an outdoorsman and have been for 35 years. I grew up in the woods. I memorized trees for mushroom hunting for a living. I know every brook, stream, bush, berry grove, log, you name it. I'm on a forest road and I'm on hour 9 of not a soul in sight. I gather some mushrooms and look up the road and see a rock has fallen from the loose, steep side of the mountain to the middle of the road. I make a mental note that I have to move it and not drive over it. I gather my mushrooms and get back to the car. I look up and I see what appears to be a 2 or 2.5 foot tall little brown thing walking from the side of the road over to the rock. My first logical thought is that it is a squirrel, but I see it is walking on 2 legs, appears to be wearing brown cloth or fur clothes, and is shaped like a human but very tiny. It's not scurrying either, it is ambling on 2 legs like a human would. Just casually walking like this is some normal, regular-ass thing, like monotonous work it does for a living. I don't believe my lying eyes. It has to be something else. I get back in the car and head up the road and see that the rock has been pushed back to the side of the road from whence it came. It had fallen off the hill, rolled to my left, then was sitting back on the other side of the road on the right. There are drag marks like someone slid it back. I look, I smell, I sense, I listen. Nothing. I don't know where gnomes live, but the old partially logged section where I was at looked pretty perfect for a clan of these things. Lots of places to hide, secluded, near water, plenty of routes of escape, and would be easy to dig little holes in the mountain and be fortified against invaders. The side road into it was flooded and appears to do so regularly, so these little guys even have their own moat. I'm positive I'm overthinking this. It was a long drive back up the mountain, then down the mountain the other way, and sometime home, and I can't pick this apart into anything else but being a tiny little forest man. I'm like 1000% positive that I saw what I saw. It was near a military special interest zone allegedly blocked off due to some native butterflies, but I'm starting to wonder if this research area is really about butterflies after all. They send you to prison, ban you from parks, and give you a $5,000 fine if you take a single berry from inside that boundary.
When I was 10, me, a friend, and his little sister were playing in the woods in rural Pennsylvania. The beginning of the event I can only remember flashes of. There was rhythmic pounding coming from different directions and something moving around us. For the life of me, it's blank until the three of us are standing in a field looking at the tree line. Out of breath and scared. I remember looking at his sister, and she was standing there wailing with tears flooding her face. I looked at the tree line and saw them. They are about 2.5 feet tall. Very dusky dark skin. Almost like a wood color. There was about a half dozen, but it was very hard to tell. They were phasing in and out and side to side. I don't know if they were wearing masks or if their faces were really that scary. They had exaggerated scowls and fierce dark eyes. Some had a tapered head, like a bishop hat or pope hat. I don't know how long we stood there, but I pointed them out and my friend stood looking blank, his sister now just crying quietly. I don't know why we stood so long watching, but eventually they started to leave. My friend said, "I never want to talk about this again." Oddly enough, I had forgotten about this until about 25 years later. I had lost contact, then reconnecting with my friend when social network started being a thing. After being FB friends for a few years, with friendly enough conversations, when suddenly I remembered that day. I messaged him, "Do you remember the day we saw those things?" He unfriended me, blocked me. A few years ago I learned about the Cherokee Little People or Pukwudgie. I know some tribes had serious wars with them, others seemed to reach a sort of peace. From my experience, I hate them. It might be because of how other they are to us humans, or maybe something worse happened to us, hence the blanks in memory. Regardless of my feelings, I do believe they are very dangerous.
Thanks for watching. If you want to hear more stories like these, please like and subscribe.